Hello, everyone. It's Tuesday night Eastern Time. President Trump gave Iran a final deadline of 8 p.m. Tuesday night. Earlier, he posted that if an agreement wasn't reached before 8 p.m., he would destroy Iran's entire civilization. Of course, I think by civilization, he means the regime of the Islamic Republic. What he meant is that he would bomb their power plants, bridges, and other infrastructure. But about an hour before 8 o'clock, President Trump posted a new message. Let me share it with everyone here. In fact, as we were recording this program, he had just posted it. He said that based on his conversation with the Prime Minister of Pakistan, they requested that I temporarily hold off on military action against Iran. The condition is that Iran must agree to fully, immediately, and safely open the Strait of Hormuz. On this basis, I agreed to suspend attacks and bombings against Iran for 2 weeks. He also said that this would be a bilateral ceasefire. The reason for doing this is that we have already achieved and even surpassed all of our military objectives. Furthermore, the process of reaching this agreement with Iran has been progressing smoothly. We have received 10 proposals from Iran and believe that this provides a feasible basis for negotiations. The 2-week period will allow the agreement to be finalized and implemented. All right, that's it. This is the latest post from Trump, and it can also be seen as the latest development in the situation of the US-Iran conflict. So what does this post mean? Has Iran actually agreed to fully and completely open the Strait of Hormuz? From this post, we still don't know, because he said that's the precondition. So has Iran agreed? Even if Iran has agreed, can they really make it happen? Will we see the Strait of Hormuz fully and completely open starting tomorrow? We don't know that either. And as for this 2-week ceasefire, if the negotiations go smoothly, will this 2-week ceasefire actually turn into a permanent ceasefire? Will this war come to an abrupt end just like that? I think at this moment anything is possible. Really, anything could happen. So this is Trump's latest post, mentioning this 2-week ceasefire. As for what exactly we'll see happen next, I think it's still hard to say, so let's just wait and see, take it as it comes. So today, actually, the main thing we want to talk about on this program is the rescue operation carried out by the US military in Iran over the weekend, a mission to save an American soldier. This operation has actually already been reported by countless media outlets and independent media. Yesterday on my show, I also invited a guest to do a full review of the entire process. We won't go over the whole thing again here, but more and more details keep emerging. I saw that regarding the US military actually finding the second pilot, well, the second person was the weapons systems officer, because of this. For the sake of convenience, let's just refer to him as the second pilot. I just saw today some details about the process, spanning several dozen minutes, of finding this second pilot, and it was truly thrilling. So here I'd like to share it with everyone. The operation to rescue the second pilot officially began at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday, April 4th. The operation was completed just after midnight, taking about 8 hours in total. The reason it started at 4:30 in the afternoon was because at that time the CIA had just located the pilot using a special monitoring method, reportedly a new technology they possess. It was through this monitoring technique that they found the pilot. According to what President Trump revealed at the press conference, the CIA's surveillance tools detected something moving along the vast mountain ridge at that time. Then they kept their surveillance camera focused on that object for 45 minutes, but saw that it didn't move at all. So they started to wonder if they might have made a mistake. At that moment, the officer suddenly stood up, and the CIA immediately realized that it was him. So the CIA notified the White House saying, "We've found him." And thus, the mission began. Next came the process of extracting the pilot. 2 MC-130 transport planes carrying 4 Little Bird helicopters arrived at a nearby makeshift airfield. Then the Little Bird helicopters quickly flew to the location where the pilot was hiding. At that time, Delta Force was responsible for securing the makeshift airfield, while tactical drones and attack aircraft provided air cover. However, because the terrain in the mountains was very rugged, the Little Bird helicopters couldn't land directly on the mountaintop, so they asked the pilot to move further down to another location below the cliff. Then, SEAL Team 6 went to look for the pilot. It actually took them several minutes to find him, and once they did, they brought him to the helicopter. Trump's team was watching the rescue operation in real time from Washington. In the Situation Room, this is according to information reported by the media, the atmosphere at the time was extremely tense. Some people were sitting hunched over, while others were pacing back and forth in the room. What was the most nerve-wracking moment? Almost no one was speaking, and as each minute ticked by, they were still searching for the pilot. Meanwhile, Iran's Revolutionary Guard and Basiji militia were slowly closing in on his location. They were closing in. So you could see the enemy forces getting closer and closer. 5 kilometers, then 3 kilometers. Someone present later told the media that every minute was excruciating, describing it as a long 15 minutes. I think from the time the plane arrived at the location to when they finally found the person, it actually took more than 10 minutes. In the end, General Brad Cooper, commander of Central Command, told Hicks, "We found him. 44 Bravo." That was the call sign for the second pilot, and it meant he was safe. However, when they flew back to the makeshift airstrip, they found that the two MC-130 transport planes were stuck in the soft ground and couldn't take off. So the military urgently activated a backup plan and dispatched 3 lighter transport planes to pick them up instead. At the press conference, Trump said that they were watching the whole thing in real time. He said the 3 planes came in like magic, boom, 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 one after another. He said, "We were really worried at the time. We were saying, oh my God, what if they can't get in and out quickly?" Things could have gone really badly, of course. He said that after watching these 3 planes arrive so quickly and then leave just as fast. In the end, these 3 planes left Iranian airspace, one after another, and landed in Kuwait. Someone summed up the entire rescue operation in one sentence, saying that they were shot down and with a bounty hanging over their heads, they evaded capture for an entire day. The CIA carried out a deception operation inside a hostile country, and special operations personnel fought their way in and then fought their way back out. They would rather destroy their own aircraft than leave them behind, and moreover, they brought everyone home. This is the US military. The US military, this is a real-life demonstration of what it means to save people at any cost. Just the equipment losses alone in this operation were nearly $400 million. The destruction of just 2 C-130 Hercules transport planes accounted for almost $200 million of that loss. Each Little Bird helicopter is worth $4.5 million, so 4 of them add up to nearly $20 million. Of course, there were also other aircraft, like the A-10 and drones, among others, so the total loss was nearly $400 million. However, the lives of pilots are priceless. Retired General Frank McKinsey, former commander of US Central Command, said something widely quoted during a media interview. He said that it only takes 1 year to build an aircraft, but it takes 200 years to build a military tradition of never abandoning anyone. Americans truly regard human life as the most important thing. I believe this is the best standard to distinguish a good country from an evil regime. Look at whether a regime cherishes human life. By this standard, Iran is an evil regime. The Chinese Communist Party is the same. Both have opened fire on their own people. So I think this is a very simple and very clear-cut standard. The Wall Street Journal published an opinion piece saying, "Never give up, never abandon anyone." This is the key to the unbreakable morale of the US military. The article says that some European commentators believe this operation came at a high cost. Others posted on X saying, so much was lost just to rescue 1 pilot, and yet they still dare to call it the greatest military success in history. The author of the article argues that these criticisms completely miss the point. He says the core of this story is that the US military turned the worst situation into a brilliant success. They accomplished one of the most complex rescue missions in history. This feat was not only a technical masterpiece, but also a victory of values. No one is left behind, no man left behind. This is a sacred vow that, after the Vietnam War, became the core of the American military warrior spirit. Critics have said that this principle is outdated in modern asymmetric warfare and could endanger more lives. But what is the alternative? In the war in Ukraine, we have seen Russian troops increasingly abandon their wounded comrades rather than risk a rescue. As a result, some Russian soldiers would rather commit suicide than be captured. Knowing that they will not be abandoned gives soldiers trapped behind enemy lines the will to keep fighting. That weekend, the wounded US Air Force colonel climbed a 7,000-foot ridge and curled up in a cold crevice for 36 hours. He knew very well that Iranian militants were searching for him, but as an American soldier, he also knew clearly that his compatriots were doing everything they could to find him, and they did. As Chief of Staff General Kane said, no matter when or where, no matter the cost, we will come to rescue you. This belief holds incredibly powerful strength. The article concludes by saying that this weekend, in the rugged mountains of Iran, this dramatic rescue operation that took place in these rough mountain ranges was just like the plot of Top Gun 3. Top Gun 3, it's believed that Hollywood is already pitching proposals to turn it into a movie. But this isn't a movie. It really happened, and that should make every American proud. And I think the most interesting thing about this whole incident is that the US military aircraft was shot down on a Friday. Friday is Good Friday, the day of Jesus' crucifixion. And the moment the second pilot was rescued was early Sunday morning. Sunday is the day of Jesus' resurrection, Easter. In the words of Hagesteth, at dawn on Easter morning, the plane carrying the rescued soldier soared into the sky. This second soldier was a devout Christian. While he was hiding in the mountains, the first message he sent to the US military was, "God is good." God is good is a phrase often used among Christians carrying a strong sense of gratitude, praise, and faith. Because this was not a standard communication phrase, the US military at the time even suspected that it might be a trap set by the Iranians. Later, a fellow soldier who knew him well confirmed to the military that he was indeed a devout believer. Moreover, the military also contacted his wife and used something related to this soldier's father, something only the soldier himself would know, to verify his identity. In the end, it was confirmed to be him. At the press conference, Kaisers gave a statement that was truly moving. He said that the day he was shot down was a Friday, which was Good Friday. He hid in a cave, in a crevice in the rocks for the entire Saturday, and was then rescued on Sunday. On Easter Sunday, as the sun rose, he was reborn by being flown out of Iran by a pilot. Everyone returned home safely, and the whole country rejoiced. God is good. God is good. At the press conference, Trump said that usually, in times of war, especially when fighting against powerful evil forces, after a plane is shot down, it's very difficult to accomplish this, because you need to send out 200 people to rescue a single plane. But we did it. We have outstanding people. He also said, I want to add that we also had a bit of luck. That bit of luck was extremely important. It's not something you can have just because you want it. If the CIA hadn't precisely located the pilot, the Iranians might have found him first. If there had been a firefight on the ground, if there had been casualties, or if anything had gone wrong during the operation, then even if the person was rescued in the end, it couldn't really be called a success. But with the result we have now, it can truly be called a complete success. That's why, at the press conference, Trump said directly, I tell you, God was watching over us. For Americans, this really has been the year that America made a comeback. From the capture of Maduro at the beginning of the year, where, yes, there were injuries, but not a single death, to the U.S. ice hockey team and Liu Mixian winning Olympic gold, and now to this perfect conclusion of rescuing American soldiers. All of these events have, each time, stirred up a strong sense of patriotism among Americans. So for Americans with faith, their understanding is that God stands on America's side, supporting the Trump administration and protecting the United States, and by extension, guiding humanity. It's quite funny. Yes, the Iranians didn't capture any American soldiers. They only found items left behind by US troops, things like toothpaste, beef jerky, and even a pair of boxer shorts with the stars and stripes pattern. They took photos with these items as if they were war trophies. Actually, behind every single one of these peculiar items, there is an incredibly strange and unusual backstory. Why exactly did these brave soldiers choose to bring these specific and highly unusual personal belongings with them? We'd like to reveal the answers to these mysteries for everyone one by one. All right, let's continue. After the American soldiers were rescued, the Iranian military found some items they had left behind. These small items actually still reflect the strength of the US military. Why would American soldiers still carry toothpaste in such an emergency situation? Well, this isn't just any ordinary toothpaste. I saw some netizens explain that toothpaste is a must-have in the survival kits of US military pilots. That's the reason. It's a rule in the manual because in mountainous areas over 2,000 meters above sea level, the air is dry and the oral mucosa can easily crack and bleed. If bacteria get in, it can become a serious problem. A small wound could lead to a major infection. During the Iraq War in 2003, there was a US soldier who developed sepsis from an oral infection and nearly lost his life. Since then, the US military has officially included oral care products in individual survival gear. This military-grade high-fluoride toothpaste is sugar-free and doubles as an emergency lubricant. Apply some to fix stuck metal zippers or even use it to temporarily patch tent leaks. So you could say it's a multi-purpose item. This has always been a tradition in US military gear. All of these are items found in emergency kits. Then there's also beef jerky. Some people say, wow, this beef jerky is even teriyaki flavored. But it's not a snack. It's not like they're eating snacks in life or death situations. In fact, this is the essence of US military special rations. This beef jerky contains up to 65% protein and only 8% fat. Just a small piece can replenish enough energy for 4 hours of high-intensity activity. The teriyaki flavor isn't just for taste. It's not simply about being delicious. The US military has conducted extensive experiments and found that sweet and savory foods can better stabilize soldiers' emotions in high-pressure environments. It's accepted 3 times more than salty flavors. This jerky lacks beans or oligosaccharides to prevent bloating and field-op digestive issues. In 2022, during a US military rescue mission in Syria, a soldier relied on this beef jerky to endure for 72 hours before successfully breaking through, which is why it has become a life-saving snack for US military pilots. In addition, the Iranians also found this type of individual field ration used by the US military. Each of these rations contains 1,250 calories, which is just enough to meet the basic daily energy needs of an adult engaged in high-intensity activity. As for this type of ration, it has a shelf life of up to 5 years and will not spoil in temperatures ranging from -50 to +50 degrees Celsius. Inside, there are dehydrated rice, canned meats, energy bars, and even coffee packets. The drinking water comes in vacuum-sealed, sterile bags, each containing 500 milliliters. Each pilot carries 3 bags, which is just enough to meet the minimum water requirement for 36 hours. Actually, this is not so simple. The US military spent 20 years developing this sealing technology just so that soldiers could drink clean water in the field. They applied for 17 patents for this alone, and the cost is 8 times higher than that of ordinary bottled water. This is all to ensure that no matter the circumstances or environment, you can open it and drink it without worrying about water contamination. So what was the purpose of those Stars and Stripes shorts in the end? It turns out that the shorts were used by the soldier as a signal, waving them to greet the rescue helicopter and let them know, "I'm here." I'm not making this up. This information comes from Jack Murphy, a former US Army Special Forces member who learned about it through his own channels. In addition, the device this American soldier used to communicate with the outside world also represents the pinnacle of US military technology. They used a device called CSL. This device was manufactured by Boeing, and it's a small, rugged piece of equipment. It is worn on the pilot's vest, and under normal temperatures, the battery can last for 21 days. Pilots usually also carry spare batteries. It doesn't communicate via radio calls, but instead sends short encrypted pulses using frequency-hopping signals. This transmits information such as location, status, injuries, or the presence of nearby enemies to their own teammates. These signals are as hard to detect for enemy systems as background noise. So this is the key point. There is no voice signal, making it difficult to track and impossible to triangulate. This device connects with American military satellites, transmitting real-time data to the rescue team, while also allowing the pilot to remain silent and concealed. Only when rescue is near does it switch modes, enabling helicopters or planes to lock onto the pilot's exact location. This is the strength of the US military. I think this truly reflects what it means to have a powerful nation behind you. All the designs and equipment are aimed at giving soldiers the greatest chance of survival. So, what is the latest situation with these two pilots? They are currently receiving treatment at the Landstuhl Medical Center near Ramstein Air Base in Germany. The pilots are not in serious condition, but the second one, the weapons systems officer, has injuries to his elbow and back. He also has a concussion, but it is expected that he will make a full recovery. So as we just saw, Trump's ultimatum has already been revised, changed to a 2-week ceasefire. So what exactly will happen after this 2-week ceasefire? As we just said, anything is possible, so we need to take a look at what exactly will happen next, what direction the US-Iran conflict will take. However, I did notice something. There was a report in the Wall Street Journal. As for this report, I think for both the US and Iran, it is still... Oh, before I talk about this, I want to mention one more thing. When Trump posted on Twitter, he said that if Iran does not agree to open the Strait of Hormuz, we will launch a full-scale attack on them after 8 p.m. on Tuesday. So how did Iran respond? They mobilized the Iranian people, ordinary citizens, including children and entire families, to go out and stand around power plants, bridges, and other key infrastructure, using their own bodies to protect these facilities. Isn't this exactly what I just mentioned? Earlier, I said that whether or not you value human life can be used as a standard to judge whether a country or a regime is evil or good. This once again proves that Iran is willing to use the lives of its own people as human shields. Of course, this kind of operation looks very familiar. It's the same with the Chinese Communist Party. That's why they claim that the US military tried to bomb their own pilots, because that's exactly what the CCP would do. Once their own troops are surrounded behind enemy lines, I think the first thing they would do is either have their own soldiers carry out punishment or find a way to bomb their own people to death. So I really think that the Iranian regime and the Chinese Communist regime have quite a few similarities. Of course, this video also shows that in Iran, there are still quite a few people who support the mullah regime, which is also a major characteristic of a dictatorship. Through this kind of extreme religious ideological brainwashing and propaganda, a considerable mass base can be formed. Let me talk a bit about the issue of bombing power plants. Of course, I don't know if such incidents will happen again in the future, but because Trump has repeatedly threatened to bomb Iran's power plants, many people say that the United States shouldn't bomb them, arguing that power plants, bridges, and so on are civilian facilities. However, both the United States and Israel have made it very clear that these facilities are extensively used by Iran's Revolutionary Guard and other military forces. At most, you could call them dual-use facilities for both military and civilian purposes. I saw a message from Professor Zhang Ping in which he said that according to Israeli military intelligence assessments, Iran's political leadership now believes that the destruction caused by the war is beyond their ability to repair. Iran simply does not have enough funds, and this has already dealt a blow to the morale of many people within the regime. The assessment believes that during the long process of post-war economic recovery, the national budget will inevitably be depleted and large-scale protests will erupt. It is possible that it was precisely based on similar intelligence that Trump, in his recent ultimatum over the past few days, this means shifting the targets from purely military objectives to dual-use infrastructure in the grey area between military and civilian purposes. This includes power plants and bridges. An Israeli senior minister said that this war is bringing the regime closer to its end. But I can't tell you whether the collapse of this regime is likely to happen before the end of Trump's term or before the end of Netanyahu's term. According to a report by the Wall Street Journal, it also said that the United States and Israel have identified a series of targets in Iran intending to severely damage the country's economy. So this is why we are now seeing a series of bombing targets that have actually changed somewhat. On Sunday, Trump gave an interview. During the interview with the Wall Street Journal, he also said that the United States is prepared to strike all of Iran's bridges and power plants because the resulting destruction would be enough to take Iran 20 years to rebuild. We've also seen in recent days that Israel has begun attacking some non-energy targets, including strikes on Iran's largest steel plant, petrochemical plants, and the US has struck a landmark bridge. Of course, attacking civilian infrastructure carries the risk of violating international law. However, US and Israeli officials claim these are legitimate targets because they produce materials used by the Iranian military. Naturally, the Iranian side has also issued corresponding threats, saying that if you continue to attack our infrastructure, we will escalate our attacks on the civilian infrastructure of Israel and Gulf countries. Well, so far this is what we can say is the latest development in the Iran conflict. Will the United States and Israel stop here and cease further economic strikes against Iran? So can the US and Iran truly reach an agreement? Will this war really come to an abrupt end here? All of these, in fact, are still questions. At this moment, I still believe that anything is possible, so let's see how things develop next. All right, thank you all for watching this episode. As always, I hope you'll like, subscribe, and share. See you next time.